Hi, Barry Eden here, and welcome to Radio Out There. And this week we're off on part 2 of our chat with Duncan Rhodes of Nexus magazine. Sorry for the bit in between, but I had computer problems, but they're sorted out now. So we continue on our mystery tour with Duncan Rhodes and 3 very different but very fascinating mysteries to investigate in this week's program. Duncan, we are back. Unfortunately, last week, apologies to our viewers and listeners, I had a computer problem, but it's all sorted out, and here we are. And more mysteries, Duncan, in this issue.
Yes, we are continuing our expose of the latest Nexus magazine, volume 32, number 5. The general theme of some of the articles in there and the editorial is the idea that the winners write the history books, which is based on the idea that a lot of our understanding, which we build upon, new discoveries, is possibly built on false foundations. And I think it's a good idea to periodically review and revise the things that we innately believe to see if they're serving us or whether they're leading us astray. And
well, the very first one is probably going to upset quite a few people if they are very strongly religious, but a great story. Rival claims of the world's 16, that's 1-6, crucified saviours.
interesting
That's
concept.
upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, and this is a book called. This is an extract from a book from over 100 years ago. The book's called "The World's 16 Crucified Saviours," and when I heard about it 20 years ago, I was a bit mystified. I'd heard of several researchers questioning the validity of the mainstream Jesus Christ narrative that's sort of taught in mainstream Western Christianity, and by that I include Protestant and Catholicism, but not so much the Christianity that's being perpetuated through North America. I'm not talking about Mormonism. I'm talking about the Judeo-Christianity, which is a bit of a again, it's a bit of a rewritten Bible for American Christians to include the validity and the existence of the state of Israel. So American Christians are supportive of Israel, but the Christians on the rest of the planet are like, what the heck? But I don't want to go into Israel. The author of this book, a chap called Kersey Graves, was what we would now call a skeptic or a rationalist. He considered himself spiritual. He basically just wanted to get to the bottom of glaring contradictions that were emerging around the middle of the 19th century. What's about 1850. So Kersey was born in 1813, died in 1883, so he had a good life of 70 years. And it was controversial, his book, but probably is not as you would think, because we were in an age then where rationalism and looking at everything that had been taken for granted was being re-examined. And one of the things they noticed was that there are 16 different personalities going back a couple of thousand years before the time of Christ, which have very eerily parallel narratives to that of the Jesus Christ narrative. Now, we can
And very
summarize.
close too. I mean, not just a bit here and there, right on target every time. Amazing.
Yeah, the book actually includes probably over 30 historical figures, but it focuses on 16 purely because of the crucifixion. So if we were to step back and look at the Jesus Christ narrative in its simplest form, you've got a savior born of a virgin who possibly had intercourse with the gods or with God himself. The Saviour was greeted upon arrival by the attendants of wise men who'd come from afar, acknowledging his validity as being a special baby. He grew up, healed the sick, raised the dead, spoke parables of wisdom and truth, inspired people, and eventually fell afoul of the local political people and was framed and executed on a cross, crucified on a hill. in between a couple of other criminals. And at the point of the crucifixion on the hill, there were earthquakes or big storms. So if that's the general, and of course, rising from the dead three days later, and continuing on. So that's probably the condensed version of the Jesus narrative. And you would be amazed to find that there are dozens which match most of those prerequisites, including the interesting one of being born on December 25th. That's quite startling as well. Crucified on a hill, being considered a political, dissident, and things like that. Healing the sick. Yes, so we're going back. The earliest example cited in this book is Thulis of Egypt, which is around 1700 BC. And I might point out that the range of these savior figures throughout history encompass a wide range of geographical area. Like it's not just the Middle East. This ranges from Japan down to Bali, all across Europe, parts of Africa, and going back in time to the Druids. And so Buddha, Krishna, Thammuz or Tammuz of Syria, Bali of Orissa, Indra of Tibet, Lao of Nepal. And there's descriptions of each of these and how they fit in and why. I was absolutely stunned. We had published articles in Nexus which challenged the narrative of the modern idea of Jesus, written by Sir Lawrence Gardner. And that's back in the 90s. And Gardner had access to the personal archives and documents of most of the royal families of Europe and was invited to peruse them. And so he had a great time, Gardner did, going through the archives of the royal families of Europe. But he came away realizing that there was a common royal bloodline which went right back up to the House of David, which included what we would understand as Jesus. Now, it's probably important to stress at this point that this book does not discount the validity or the existence of a Jesus figure in the time frame that we're looking at. But it does suggest, as did Lawrence Gardner, that the narrative was hijacked centuries later and changed to become the modern Christianity that we see now, which is fully controlled by the Vatican up to the point of the Protestants, etc., etc. And that ruthless grip on the narrative by the Roman Catholic Church only relaxed with the advent of a bit of technology in Europe, especially the printing press. When the printing press started to print the Bible and put it in the hands of ordinary people, that began the big change in the power of the church in terms of disseminating the word of God. People started reading the Bible, they started seeing contradictions, they started to see obvious things which were nonsense, and it took away a lot of the fear of going to hell automatically. People around the Middle Ages had already seen that the priests in England, under the control of the Pope, were able to rape or murder or steal at will and never be punished. So all those things, conspired together to change Christianity. So by the time Kersey Graves came along in the 19th century, there was a bit of momentum where people were openly challenging this sort of stuff without fear of being executed, which was the case a couple of hundred years earlier, when you, even though you might have had all the astronomical science in the world to back you up, heresy was heresy and death was death, and often the two went hand in hand.
Yeah.
So this is a
Talking of hell, by the
remarkable
way,
one.
talking of hell, I read a story, funnily enough, only this morning, just before we came on air, that there was no reference ever to hell in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
And it just did not exist. It was invented. And I know from my contact with the other side, there is no hell. So there's a lot of mysteries being thrown around at the moment, and a lot of information that we need to look at logically.
One more little addition to there too is that when they had the councils of Nicaea, and there were multiple ones, and this is centuries after the mainstream Jesus narrative.
325 AD.
Yeah, they changed huge concepts that were sustaining Christianity up to that point, which included believing in reincarnation, giving a lot of validity to the equality of the feminine, And basically, it was politically changed to suit literally the Roman Catholic Empire and its control. And we've already talked in previous shows about when Christianity spread across what we call the pagan lands, in order to get I mean, it's a bit of a waste of resources to slaughter everybody in a land you've taken over. So what you
Yeah.
do is you poach their sacred sites, you poach and use their sacred dates, and you poach aspects of their sacred narratives. So, for example, a lot of the stuff regarding Easter is positioned where it is and named for where it is to incorporate the goddess Astarte,
Mm.
which was widely recognized not only in Europe but parts of Central Asia as well. So, to get on the good side, you take the dates and the places and you gradually change and introduce the new narrative. And because it's built on the place and the dates of previous control narratives, it's a bit easier for the local population to adapt to. And of course, you just murder any troublemakers until the new generation are being perpetually brainwashed by their own parents, which is
Mm.
definitely the case of Christianity.
Mm. Looking back on some of those people in that list of 16, the one that jumped out at me was the first one in the article, and that is Krishna. Now, Krishna in India has had a tremendous effect. He was known under many different areas. He was known as it came from the Bhagavan Vita, and Hindu was his background there, but he then became the Buddha. So, I mean, this
I
is
know
it's a
there's a lot
wonderful,
to take in. Yeah.
it's a lot, but also the list of all the things he did may well have come from the Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is it. And I mean, you've got the Bible is composed of the Old Testament and the New Testament, and one of the interesting things is the lack of any mention of Satan or the devil
Mhm.
in a lot of these things. It
Yeah.
was like an introduction in order to secure and cement. I mean, the idea of creating a common enemy is the idea behind 9/11 and behind a lot of the geopolitical tactics. You
Yeah.
murder your own people, blame someone else with evidence, and you're using the anger and outrage of your side people being killed by them to trigger a conflict. It's done
Mm.
on tribal levels, it's done on international levels. They're still doing it today. And the idea of having an enemy is only there to unite under basically unite around your leader, your ruler. So it
Mm.
caused and forced unity to believe in Satan to wrap around. I mean, the Crusades, you've got all these millions of people living in, potato farming land across Europe, and they've got a wife and kids, and they've been taught from birth that the worst thing that can happen, and you've got to be careful and think about it every day, is going to hell. So they were literally thinking about it from morning to evening. How can they stop their kids, their wives, themselves, their parents and relatives from going to hell? Oh, you can go on a crusade, and you can kill Muslims. Just kill anybody as long as you go on the crusade. Your entire family is going to be guaranteed to go to purgatory instead of hell, and that's better than heaven. So later on in the Crusades, to get them going, I think they guaranteed that they would go to heaven or something like that. I mean, it was
Right.
just nonsense, and that's not even including being able to purchase relics, which would guarantee that you would go to heaven more than hell. I mean, yeah, boy, we've come a long way.
Well, yeah. Well, if there's no hell, then there can't be no devil.
I know it's a modern myth.
Of
Yeah.
course it is. Of course. Now, there are so many wonderful names on that list, and not only in Europe and India and whatever, but also Quetzalcoatl over in Mexico. So it was a
Yeah.
worldwide, I won't say phenomenon, but a link that the crucifixion and all the savior bit was not just in one area, it was a worldwide thing.
Mhm. And most of these don't have the narrative that they're going to come back. Like we're expecting the second coming in some parts, but that's not really enshrined in the ancient ones. That's why I find it very interesting. If you look at the core
Mm.
of the Jesus narrative, it matches the core of these narratives without some of the later frills that have been added on.
Yeah, yeah. So, Nexus, the local, I'm sorry, the latest edition of Nexus has been out for a few weeks. Have you had much reaction to that story?
Um, Not any reaction I would be expecting would probably be coming from American Christians
Mm.
who would identify closer. And the outrage would be, oh, we're the only correct Christians on the planet, is what a lot of the American Christians have told me. American Christians do not consider Catholicism to be true Christianity. That's how far they've been brainwashed in
Yeah.
100 years of a distorted Bible. And I'm not even talking about Mormonism. I'm talking about the Christianity that goes through Central
Mm.
America, and not Catholicism, which is different again.
Mm.
No, a lot of Nexus readers. I definitely got more outrage when I mentioned a year or so ago that all the inquiries so far showed that with the October 7th thing with Israel and Hamas, that it was a false flag event. There was no mass rapes, no beheaded babies, and the Israelis did the slaughtering at the music festival. That garnered more outrage. And of course, since then, I've been proven true. I mean, I didn't need to be proven true. I mean, it was known widely to a lot of people. So it's sometimes when people are confronted immediately with a narrative which not only contradicts their preferred narrative, but makes them and their narrative look like they could be sided with the baddies, that causes outrage and shock. So I had a few people cancel subscriptions, but I had a lot more take up subscriptions to the magazine because they could see that the mainstream media at that point was omitting everything that we were saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's so much going on there. I don't want to. I want to move on from that
Sure.
whole area. It changes every day, every minute, almost. Anyway, let's go to another form of change, and that is polymorphism. Now, this is
Yes.
another mystery in the current edition, and well, is it just something out of Edgar Allan Poe? Is it something of just some weird narrative somewhere, or just a legend?
Well, yes, indeed. The article on polymorphism is probably more recognized by the term shapeshifting. Um, that's the modern vernacular for it. Like if you said to most of my readers, someone shapeshifted, they'd understand. But if you said they were polymorph, they'd probably have to go and look it up.
I did.
Yeah, yeah. So polymorphism. So it's not. I mean, I probably should have just put shapeshifting on the cover and appealed to. But anyway, I'm not into. I'm not very good at marketing and selling
Oh, you're doing
things.
all right.
Yeah. But anyway, this again surprised me too. The idea of shape-shifting. I mean, we hear a lot of modern day cases. I've done a lot of research into the myths and legends of the early pioneers and trappers and the native Indians of North America, Canada, Alaska. There's definitely a lot of cases of what we would call shape-shifting
Mm.
amongst the tribal culture and law of the creatures that sort of live in the realms in between our reality or come and go. So it's something again which is global and it persists up to this time. So the article actually includes a good look at how polymorphism occurs in nature. There are some creatures which can almost change shape, texture, color, and size
Like fish.
um, instantaneously to
Mm.
avoid, detection or to hide from a predator, etc. So
Mm.
when you see the ability to shapeshift so dramatically and so quickly in nature, in the animal kingdom, it makes you realize that it is likely to be possible, in a human kingdom if we understood it a
Yeah,
bit
why not?
more.
Mm.
Yeah, so there's the marine world obviously is the first case of the modern science ones, but it's a case of yes, I mean, polymorphism seems to be a spontaneous ability to shapeshift, and there's a fair bit of discussion about how much is involuntary, like the idea of growing lots of hair on a full moon
Mm.
and starting to howl and the things they've made movies over. But in the native cultures, like the Aboriginals and other places, there is a consistent narrative discussing the fact that the body is able to do it. It's not sought after and desired. It's sort of like it happens, and it's you got to put up with it or try and fix it or try and um, find an antidote for it. Is what most of the myths and legends going back through history of it are. More modern examples are what we would call the dog-headed humans or the dog man. A lot of people in the Northern Hemisphere report seeing that type of creature to this day in parts of North America. And we're not talking just the remote wilderness where nobody ever goes. We're talking, a lot of the national park areas and the fringes of some of the cities where there's wilderness. So it's a bit of a mystery still remaining. A lot of unexplained stuff there. They're in Scandinavia, the Philippines. Um, yeah, I just think it's fascinating. I mean, it's one thing to see a complete unique creature, but the idea that a person or a creature is this, and then you look away and you look back and they're quite different. That sort of is the shape-shifting side of it. And
Mm.
and there's also hints in the article of the concept that it is contagious in some aspects. Like we did an article on the Skinwalker Ranch, which a lot of people are familiar with. But the article was very intrigued and focusing on how all these researchers, including technicians who don't really give a hoot about whether something's at Skinwater Ranch or not, they're being paid to to operate a camera, to make sure the lighting's right and the sound's right. And they're just there because that's their professional job. And they're at Skinwalker Ranch. And sure, they might see things which are a bit weird. But a lot of the people in those research things, when they go home at the end of the job, the phenomenon seems to follow them individually. It's like you're going to an area of strange poltergeist activity, and when you go home, whether you're a believer or not, it goes with you. And this has also happened in the polymorphism
Mm.
side of things. Like exposure to something strange seems to affect you or affect your consciousness or your spirit, your vibration. I don't know.
Mm. It does
Um,
make a long way, though, doesn't it? I mean,
hmm.
in America, the Hopi and the Navajo Indians have these legends, and it's not just something that's been made up, like the werewolf in some movie or whatever.
Every continent with an indigenous culture, it goes back to the beginnings of their own, stories and
Mm.
etc. It's an age-old thing, and sadly, most of the shape-shifting and stuff seems to be associated with terror, fear, not nice things, eating of humans. There's not a lot of shape-shifting stories that are based on happy endings and happy situations
Mm.
and a happy reason to shapeshift, sadly. So
Has it
yeah.
ever been investigated? Because if there are mad crimes of people being ripped apart and whatever, you would think there would be files, police files, or investigations or something.
Well, that's a discussion for another day, but what I have learned in my
Mm.
nearly 40 years of investigating weird stuff, when I've spoken to the few law enforcement, military, or intelligence officers who are aware of this, especially the law enforcement and police, like there are obviously a lot of cases around the world with the existing police force in the cities where something so horrific and mysterious has occurred that it sits in the unexplained.
Mm.
And I mean, yeah, I mean, I've spoken to police officers in Sydney in the 80s, and they assured me that there are some cases which will never be told to the public. They're not told to any investigating officers outside of those exposed to it. And I got the impression that there is what you would call demonic or otherworldly activity, which shocks some of the attending investigators.
Mm.
And they have to be literally quarantined. They sign NDAs. They can't not allowed to talk to other investigators. It becomes like sealed. And I've learned the same thing happens in America, Britain, Europe, and in some cases it's bumped up to the FBI or to an intelligence agency who goes out. And then after they do their thing, you don't hear of any more cases in that area of
Mm.
people disappearing or strange things happening. My own personal assessment is that there have been creatures and things that are able to come and go into this world, and there have been some of them that chose to stay. And more in the last 50 years, our own intelligence agencies and stuff have decided, for whatever reasons, to go through a lot of remote and rural areas and eliminate things which cause a lot of these mysteries. Things like going out into the Nullarbor Desert with a couple of Indigenous Aboriginal elders and being shown a crashed UFO of about 10-foot length and diameter, and it's crashed in the middle of the desert, and a tree has grown up and it's sort of like entwined in the branches and it's still flashing and it's been there maybe 1,000 years or 500 years. Things like that. The Aboriginal world has definitely got in touch with different aspects of the government and said, can you come and fix this area? Everyone who goes in there dies. Can you go in there and sort it out so that we don't have to keep telling people, or anyone who goes near this flashing piece of metal, they die after a while, and their babies are born deformed. So that seems to have been going on over the last 50 years plus in a lot of parts of the world where there were mysteries and things, and now if you go there, it's gone. But it's like we sent someone in there to sort it out so that ordinary humans who are bushwalking or exploring or being scientists living in the jungle to find a new species of creature, that they're not so common. And yeah, so that's in answer to your question, those things still do occur, but they're not revealed to the public.
Fair enough. Now, talking of things coming into our world, there is a very strange object in the heavens at the moment.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's just starting to be recognized by people who look out into space.
Look, it's very exciting. I don't think we've done anything on it in the issue of Nexus we're talking
No.
about, but it's a good thing to talk about because it's going to pass through the solar system. Well, maybe not, but it's on its way and it's due to sort of pass through and exit before we get to the next issue of Nexus. And what I'm talking about is an interstellar visitor to our solar system, which is referred to on the internet as 3I Atlas. 3 stands for, this is the third object that we have detected coming into our solar system from outer space. And when I say outer space, I'm talking about outside of the solar system entirely, which is quite interesting. This is the third one. The first one was couple of years ago called Oumuamua, and it
Oh,
caused a bit of
yes, yes.
controversy. Yeah,
Mm.
because it sort of came through, and as it sort of passed through, and it came through. Imagine the solar system is flat like this, the sun's in the middle, and all the planets are going around in that direction. So you can look at the solar system side on. Oumuamua sort of came in from out here and went up that way. It wasn't on the same plane as the solar system. But it did some strange things, including it looked like a minor course change and a minor bit of acceleration as it took off, and leaving a lot of people thinking, well, did that just come by and give us like a scan of the solar system and a scan of Earth, and then decided, okay, it's time to scoot off out of here? The minor course change and velocity acceleration made a lot of people go, whoa, that's weird. And of course, astronomers who don't want to go down that road because they want to keep funding will say, oh, it was dust. There was an explosion of dust in that part of the thing because it came past the sun and the sun heated up a bit and a bit of dust pushed out. So that's blah, blah. And I mean, it's crazy. Then we had one come through which didn't make a lot of noise because it was small. This one, 3I Atlas. So 3 is the third one, I is interstellar, Atlas is the name of the telescope setup that discovered it. And this is very unusual because imagine again, you've got the solar system, you're looking at the solar system side on from way out in space. Now, the chances of an interstellar visitor coming into our solar system at the same angle as this, like the same plane as us, is like one in thousands and thousands and thousands. Most rocks are going to come in from, you've got 360 angles. But for one to come into the same thing as our solar system is very unusual. This one is coming in with basically a 2 or 3 degree difference to the plane of the ecliptic of our solar system, which is blowing astronomers' minds in terms of the chances of that happening are astronomically small.
And
On
it's
top
also
of it,
changing direction a lot too, isn't it?
well, no, 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 no. This one is not changing direction like
I read somewhere it
No,
was.
this one is coming through, and what they've decided so far is it's massive. It is very much, much bigger than Oumuamua, much, much bigger. And it's coming through at an incredible speed, much faster than Oumuamua. It's coming in at the moment around 58 kilometers per second. And when it hits its sort of apex thing, as it sort of swings past the sun, it will be moving at around 68 kilometers per second. Now, that's about 2 or 3 times faster than the average asteroid or comet coming through the system. And then on top of it, apart from its size, it's been giving off a big glow. And astronomers have been going, oh my gosh, why has it got a big glow? And people are saying, well, obviously it's a comet. It's getting close to the sun. It's heating up and dust and ice is appearing around it. But get this, when that happens, the sun, if the sun's here and the comet's there, the tail is on that side. Of every comet we've ever seen go through the solar system, the comet's always away from the sun.
Mm.
This this object has got a corona facing towards the sun. And they're just like astronomers are going, what? We've never, how is it possible that a gaseous cloud is aiming at the sun? And of course, I'm an electric universe aficionado, and I'm sort of thinking, well, obviously it's got a charge, and the sun's got a charge, and some charges attract and some charges repel. I mean, I don't know. I'm just sort of guessing, but the standard model is being absolutely, ripped apart and questioned. And of course, the thing with astronomers is they want to keep funding. And so if they say anything controversial, it ain't going to happen. And so thankfully, you've got a astronomer expert personality out there called Avi Loeb. He's Harvard. He's untouchable. Nobody can dispute, question, or ever, insult his credentials. He is at the top. And thankfully, he has released a paper speculating, and it was in the media a lot, and of course the media are idiots and they just take what they want to hear out of it. The article speculated on what if this is an alien probe, does it fulfill blah 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 blah. So he's not saying it is an alien probe, he says, what is, let's have a look at it. And it based on what they call the dark forest hypothesis. The dark forest hypothesis is that the region of space around us is like a dark forest, which doesn't mean it's uninhabited. It sort of means that it is inhabited and people are keeping to themselves because they're scared of being detected by other civilizations. So everyone's a bit quiet. And so in this thing, he's postulated that the flow at the front of the comet could be the equivalent of a manned or artificial craft applying a braking maneuver with thrusters to slow it down because it's coming at an incredible speed. Now, the other mind-blowing thing about this visitor is that not only is it coming in at the same plane as the ecliptic, but its course doesn't hit any planets, which is fine. I mean, you've got 9 or 10 planets going around like this. But at his speed, what's mind-blowing is that 3 of the planets of the solar system, it goes by very close to, within what they call 1 astronomical unit, which is the sort of unit if you ran a spaceship and you wanted to scan a inhabited planet without triggering their proximity alarms and having them attack you, one astronomical unit is considered the ideal thing. So this rock passes 1 astronomical unit of Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. And that's 3 planets in one flyby. And it's like, what are the chances of that happening? And so it increases to the point where most people would say the mathematics suggest that this is an artificial object being intelligently guided on a reconnaissance mission, because the chances of it not being that, I mean, you're more likely to win the lotto than the chances.
The shape
Now
also,
we will find out.
Hang on. The shape also, if you take that into account, adds to what you're saying.
The shape is roughly potato or circular, not long and thin like Oumuamua was believed to be. And don't forget, we didn't actually see. All we saw was the light getting elongated and then going small. So it was assumed Oumuamua was, flipping over. But this seems to be more generic, more round, more spherical. But the thing in the last week that's been baffling all the experts is it's just getting brighter and brighter. Where's the light coming from? Is it a dust cloud? Why is it so bright at the position it's at? And yesterday, one of the astronomy channels that I follow, it's called The Angry Astronaut. And he is very well connected, very well informed. And he is not afraid to speculate, even though personally deep down at the end of each episode, he says, I believe it is a comet, blah, blah, blah. But he will put out there the reasons why astronomers are freaking out. And just yesterday, he released a video, and he's stunned too, because it suggests now that there's every reason to believe this object may have its own light source. It may be, generating its own artificial light. And again, if you're an electric universe aficionado, there could be quite a bit of scope in that scenario to allow for that event to happen, just with a different understanding. Again, purely because the object is from outside the solar system. And inside the solar system, we are like a coherent electromagnetic, um, a bit like a cell of a human. There's a border to it, and everything inside has got the same electromagnetic sort of spectrum at varying degrees. So it's like going into a cosmic egg without a shell. And this is coming from outside, so it could have its own properties, which cause it to interact, be stimulated, excited.
Yeah.
So now on the new age consciousness side of things, again, it's getting very interesting because there's quite a few people out there sort of saying, well, let's remote view it. Let's go out of body and visit it. Let's ask psychics. So I've been looking at some of the narratives coming out of the consciousness and conspiracy movement. And generally speaking, I've noticed is that based on whatever technique or whatever, the consensus is that this is possibly a beneficial or benevolent visitor. One guy, George Cavalassis, is saying that it contains 3 admirals who are working for the good guys, and they're coming back to Earth to render support and assistance. One of the Dolores Cannon type of regression experts who I've been watching and listening to, her perception from tapping into it is that it is, this is interesting. Their narrative is that this is a chunk of a planet run by dark forces, deliberately sent our way because the dark forces that are here have been booted out some time ago, and their power is waning, and their power is derived purely from spreading fear. Fear of anything, fear of a cold, rejection, fear of a new world order based on totalitarianism, fear of evil aliens, fear of going to hell. Whatever narrative throughout history has been based on fear, that's where it's come from. And so her narrative is saying is that the dark forces are running out of fear and they need a boost, like an energy shot. And the whole point of this rock is to travel through the solar system and generate fear. And that fear, it sends an instantaneous food source back to the nasty guys back on their home world, because distance doesn't matter on that level. And so they get a bit of a boost. But those sources saying that are saying, you know, the light's getting brighter. It's like the death struggles of something as we're going into a change. So yeah, it's an interesting perspective, because I do agree that the main resource, the main tool of control of this planet for so long has been the tool of fear.
We've talked about
I would say to
before.
anybody out there, if you've got any fears of anything, examine the belief systems that you've got in place that maintain that fear to be able to exist. Because
you know the old acronym FEAR, false evidence appearing real. I use that all the time.
Look, fear can serve us into stimulation and awareness and exploration, but if the beliefs that are maintaining fear are there now, you should check whether the beliefs are serving you or whether you're serving them.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, we have delved into quite a few mysteries, and maybe we'll find out more in the very near future about our interstellar visitor. But if not, well, we just have to plan it out and not go into fear mode.
Exactly. Well, in a couple of months' time, we'll probably know more about the Three-Eye Atlas, what it's doing and what it's not doing. So, yeah. I'd just love it if it had some nice aliens who were piggybacking and dropping off here to help us sort out our mess. But
yes, please. I think we're all like that. Duncan, good to catch up with you once again, and thank you for presenting more, not only mysteries, but things for people to think about.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, with such a diversity of information every time I talk to him, it's no wonder Duncan is my most popular guest on radio out there. Good on you, Duncan. Thanks a lot. And thank you for joining us on the program. Next week, another mystery, but a very different kind of one. See you next week on Radio Out There. Bye now.